As a real estate agent in a city that never sleeps, I thought I'd seen it all, from penthouses with views to die for, to quaint little houses that hid dark secrets in their basements. But that was before I became the go-to agent for a clientele whose needs were anything but ordinary. My clients weren't just looking for good school districts or easy commutes. No, they needed homes accommodating nocturnal lifestyles, proximity to ley lines, or underwater access. This was the world of supernatural real estate, a realm I had unwittingly stepped into. It all started on a foggy Tuesday evening when I received a call from Miss Alara, who needed a discreet consultant with an open mind. Little did I know that call would change the course of my career. "Mr. Sullivan," Alara said in a voice smooth as silk, yet edged with a hint of something ancient and mysterious. "I represent a particular market sector. We have specific requirements that many agents find challenging." Curiosity piqued. I agreed to meet her at a local cafe, which turned out to be lit by candles and smelled faintly of sage and the sea. Alara was a vision of otherworldly beauty, her pale skin contrasting sharply with the dark, crowded room. Her eyes, a deep crimson, locked onto mine as she detailed her needs. A quiet location, away from garlic growers, with space for, let's say, a large wine cellar, she explained with a sly smile. I soon learned that this wine cellar was intended for her blood bank. Alara was a vampire and was just the first of many supernatural beings to become my client. Each had unique requirements, shrouded in mystery and intrigue, that I was tasked with fulfilling. After successfully finding Alara her perfect nocturnal abode, a Victorian mansion with blackout curtains and an expansive underground, word spread quickly through the supernatural community. Before I knew it, I was getting calls from all sorts of beings with equally unique housing needs. There was Mr. Gray, a charming yet elusive phantom who required a place with historical significance, preferably with some lingering spirits of its own. It's always nice to have a company that understands the nuances of non-corporeal existence, he joked during our consultation. Then came Luna, a werewolf, looking for a home with vast private woods where she could roam freely during full moons. Privacy was a must, given her propensity for howling at the sky and what she described as occasional involuntary landscaping. A trio of witches needed a cottage with an east-facing garden where rare magical herbs could be grown, and a basement sturdy enough to withstand the occasional explosion from spell experiments gone awry. And let's remember the mermaid, Marina, who required a beachfront property with direct access to the sea and rooms that could be flooded to accommodate her aquatic nature during high tides. Each client brought their own set of challenges and rewards. I learned to ask questions I never thought I'd ask in real estate, like, is the property on a dragon ley line? Or, how soundproof are the walls in case of incantations? Finding homes for my supernatural clients wasn't just about making sales. It was about ensuring these extraordinary beings could live their lives, or eternities, in comfort and secrecy. It was a responsibility I took seriously, understanding the unique challenges they faced and the importance of providing them with a safe haven in our world. One day, as I was updating my listings to include optional hexproofing and spectral insulation, I realized how far I'd come from selling cookie-cutter condos. I was now Sullivan, the supernatural realtor, bridging the gap between the mundane and the magical, one sale at a time. This transformation from a conventional real estate agent to a champion for the supernatural filled me with a sense of pride and accomplishment. It was a crisp autumn morning when I received a frantic call from Marina, the mermaid client whose beachfront property I had secured months earlier. "Sullivan, something's wrong with the house. I need you here now." Her voice blended panic and the rush of waves in the background. I grabbed my coat and headed out, driving down to the coast with a sense of foreboding. As I approached the house, the sea seemed unusually turbulent, its waves crashing against the shore with a thunderous roar. Dark clouds gathered overhead, casting an ominous shadow over the scene as if mirroring the chaos that awaited me below. Marina was waiting on the shore, her tail glistening under the occasional sunlight that broke through the clouds. "It's the basement," she said without preamble. "It's not just flooded. It's cursed. Strange things have been happening. Objects moving, eerie voices, and it's worsening. As a realtor, I wasn't usually fazed by talk of hauntings. After all, half my clients were from the spectral side of things, but Marina's distress was palpable. I followed her into the house, down to the basement, which had been modified to accommodate her aquatic needs. The moment we stepped inside, the temperature dropped, and a faint whispering filled the air, coming from nowhere and everywhere. The water in the basement stirred ominously. "Did you hear that?" Marina asked, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, coalescing into a discernible voice. "Leave. Now. Danger." "Okay. That's not normal," I admitted, pulling out my phone to contact Alara, hoping her vampire senses might offer some insight. Before I could dial, the basement door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The water swelled faster, forming a vortex that threatened to drag us under. Marina's eyes widened in terror. "It's trying to pull me in." Acting quickly, I reached for her hand, anchoring her to the spot as I fought against the supernatural current. "Hold on, Marina." With my other hand, I managed to send a distress signal to Alara, and then to Luna and Mr. Gray, hoping that between them, they could help us break whatever curse had taken hold here. Minutes felt like hours as we struggled against the force in the basement. Just when it seemed we would be overwhelmed, the door burst open, and Alara stormed in, followed by Luna, whose presence seemed to stabilize the room momentarily. Alara quickly assessed the situation, her eyes narrowing. "This isn't just a haunting, it's a binding spell," she declared, moving her hands in intricate patterns to break the spell's hold. Luna, in her human form, helped stabilize Marina. She chanted in a low, soothing voice that mingled with the growling undertones of her werewolf heritage, adding strength to Alara's spell-breaking efforts. As the spell weakened, Mr. Gray materialized, his phantom form flickering. "I sensed a disturbance from across town," he said, his voice echoing. "This basement is a nexus for spectral energy. It's been used before, wrongly." Together they worked to break the spell and cleanse the area, ensuring no residual dark magic remained. The water calmed, the whispering ceased, and the air warmed slightly. Breathing heavily, I looked around at my supernatural team, feeling a mix of awe and relief. "Thank you, everyone. I thought we were goners." Alara smiled slightly. "It's part of the service, Sullivan. But let's screen these properties more carefully for cursed basements in the future, shall we?" As we left the basement, Marina hugged each of us, her relief palpable. "I owe you all, really." Later that day, as I was back in my car, watching the storm clear over the ocean, I realized my job was more than just selling houses. It was about ensuring these beings could live safely in our world, a world as dangerous as it was mysterious. The incident at Marina's house barely settled when I received a call that would plunge me into another unexpected adventure. This time, it was from a new client, a witch named Cassandra, who had heard of my expertise through the supernatural grapevine. "Mr. Sullivan, I require a residence that suits particular criteria." Cassandra's voice was calm, yet held an undercurrent of urgency. "It must be secluded, surrounded by a wide variety of natural flora, and most importantly on an ancient ley line." Intrigued and a bit wary after the last ordeal, I arranged to meet Cassandra at a local cafe known for its discretion and clientele who wouldn't blink an eye at talk of ley lines and magical herbs. Cassandra arrived precisely on time, her presence commanding yet ethereal. Her eyes, a deep shade of green, seemed to shimmer with hidden knowledge as she laid out the parameters of her needs. "I am planning a significant ritual that will require the energies of a ley line. The property must align perfectly with these energies." Understanding the gravity of her request, I suggested several properties that might meet her requirements. We settled on visiting a remote estate that sat deep in the heart of the woods, known among the few who were aware of its existence for its supernatural solid energies. As we drove to the estate, the dense forest seemed to close in around us, the late afternoon sun barely penetrating the thick canopy of trees. "This feels right," Cassandra murmured, gazing out the window with a look of intense concentration. Arriving at the estate, I felt a chill run down my spine. The house was old, its architecture a blend of Victorian pomp and Gothic mystery, perfect for a witch of Cassandra's caliber but imposing enough to give anyone pause. We toured the property, and Cassandra frequently paused to perform small checks with her pendulum. Cassandra stopped as we approached the heart of the estate, a clearing in the forest that vibrated with unseen energy. "This is it," she said, her voice a mixture of excitement and something else I couldn't quite place. Fear, perhaps, or anticipation. Suddenly, the air around us thickened, and the sky darkened ominously, the wind picking up as though answering Cassandra's declaration. "We're not alone," she hissed, looking around sharply. Before I could react, figures emerged from the trees, shadowy forms that moved with purpose and malevolence. They were not human. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and their movements were too fluid, too synchronized. Cassandra reacted instantly, her hands weaving through the air, chanting in a language I couldn't understand. Protective barriers shimmered into existence around us, but the shadowy figures were quickly testing them. "I need more power," Cassandra grinned, struggling to maintain the barriers. "The ley line can amplify my magic, but I need to reach the center of the clearing." Understanding the risk but seeing no alternative, I nodded. "Lead the way. I'll cover you." What happened next was a blur of motion and magic. Cassandra moved towards the center of the clearing, her chants growing louder, more urgent. I did my best to assist, throwing anything I could find at the advancing shadows, buying her precious seconds. Reaching the heart of the ley line, Cassandra's magic exploded in a wave of light and energy. The ground shook, the air shimmered, and the entire forest seemed to hold its breath momentarily. The shadowy figures recoiled, their forms dissolving under the intensity of Cassandra's magic, which now pulsed with the ley line's power. As the light faded, the forest returned to normal, the only sound of our heavy breathing and leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. Cassandra slumped, exhausted but triumphant. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. I couldn't have done it without you." As we walked back to the car, the estate now seeming less menacing and more like a potential home, I realized my role as a supernatural realtor was more than just a job. It was a calling that required more than just a good sense of property value. It required courage, a quick mind, and an open heart. "Let's close the deal," Cassandra said with a small smile. "Absolutely," I replied, ready for whatever the next client might bring. One misty October morning, my phone rang with a call from a new client, Adrian, whose voice was tinged with an accent I couldn't quite place. "Mr. Sullivan, I urgently need a property that can accommodate a rather unique family reunion," he explained. His tone suggested that this was no ordinary family gathering. Curious, I agreed to meet Adrian at a cafe known for its privacy and clientele, who were more likely to discuss spell components than stock options. Adrian arrived looking every bit the part of a distinguished gentleman, but his aura was tinged with an otherworldly glow that spoke of ancient lineage. "I represent a family of dragons," Adrian revealed, checking to ensure we were not overheard. "Every century we gather to renew our familial bonds and decide the fates of our treasures scattered around the world. We require a secluded location to ensure privacy and strong enough to support our true forms." The challenge was unlike any I had faced. The property would need not only to be secluded and vast, but also magically fortified to handle the presence of dragons. I suggested several remote properties, but I only met all the criteria once I remembered an old estate that had been on the market for years, rumored to be cursed and thus perfect for our needs. Adrian nodded in approval as we toured the property, a sprawling manor surrounded by dense forest and protected by ancient wards. "This will do nicely," he declared, but his expression darkened. "However, there is one issue." Before he could elaborate, the ground shook, and a low, menacing growl echoed through the trees. We were not alone. From the shadows emerged a creature, its scales shimmering with a dark iridescence, its eyes a fiery red. It was a rogue dragon attracted by our presence and the ancient magic of the estate. Adrian stepped forward, his form shimmering. In his place stood a magnificent dragon, its scales the color of deep emerald. "Stay back, Sullivan," he warned in a voice that rumbled like thunder. I watched, frozen in awe and fear, as Adrian confronted the intruder. Flames and magic clashed in the air, the force of their battle shaking the very foundations of the estate. Just when it seemed the rogue dragon might gain the upper hand, Adrian unleashed a powerful spell passed down through his lineage, enveloping the rogue in a whirlwind of magical energy. The rogue dragon, realizing defeat was imminent, fled, leaving behind a scorched earth and the scent of brimstone. Adrian transformed back into his human form, looking slightly weary but victorious. "Thank you for staying, Sullivan. Most would have fled," Adrian said with a wry smile. "It's my job to see the transaction through no matter the complications," I replied, trying to steady my nerves. The sale went through without further incidents, and the estate soon buzzed with the arrival of dragons from around the world, their majestic forms a breathtaking sight against the backdrop of the old manor. As word of my role in securing the dragon reunion spread, my phone rang more frequently, each call a promise of a new adventure, each property a gateway to the hidden worlds among us. The dragon reunion at the old estate solidified my reputation as the go-to realtor for the supernatural and marked me as a figure of interest in the hidden worlds. Adrian, grateful for my assistance and impressed by my bravery, had spoken highly of me in various circles. This endorsement brought new clients, but it also attracted the attention of less than could have been more. A few weeks after the reunion, I received a cryptic message. "The balance has shifted. Meet me at the Twilight Crossroads." The note was unsigned, but something about the calligraphy suggested a delicate but firm hand, possibly a witch or a sorcerer. Curiosity and a sense of duty drove me to the specified location, where the veils between worlds were thin, known only to those versed in ancient lore. A figure emerged from the shadows as the sun dipped below the horizon. It was a woman, her presence both alluring and intimidating. "I am Morgana," she introduced herself, her voice echoing slightly as if carried by the wind. "You have gained the dragon's favor, Mr. Sullivan, which has upset the balance in our realms." "How so?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the unnerving energy she exuded. "Your actions have granted the dragons more power, emboldening them. They are guardians of ancient treasures and secrets. With increased confidence, they may expand their territories, leading to clashes with other supernatural beings." Understanding dawned on me. The supernatural community was a network of delicate alliances and power balances. My unwitting interference, however positive for the dragons, could lead to conflicts. "What can I do to rectify this?" I inquired, aware of the seriousness of the situation. Morgana studied me for a moment, her eyes piercing. "There is a property, a nexus of ley lines, that if acquired and controlled by a neutral party such as yourself, could serve as a diplomatic ground for the supernatural factions." This was not what I had expected when I first ventured into real estate for the supernatural, but it was clear that my role was no longer just about selling properties. It was about maintaining a balance that affected more than just market values. I agreed to Morgana's plan, and with her guidance, set out to secure the nexus. It was a grand estate in Scotland's heart, surrounded by rolling hills and ancient stones. The property was steeped in magic, and its grounds were a tapestry of natural and mystical energies. Securing the estate was only the first step. I had to invite representatives from various supernatural factions, vampires, witches, phantoms, werewolves, and more, to establish it as neutral territory. Each faction had its interests and conditions, turning what I initially thought would be simple real estate negotiations into complex diplomatic discussions. Over several months, the estate became a council ground where disputes were settled, alliances forged, and the supernatural community's balance carefully managed. I became more of a mediator than a realtor, a challenging and exhilarating role. As peace and stability began to take root, I realized that my involvement in the supernatural world was no longer just about business. It was about ensuring the survival and harmony of a community, as diverse as it was hidden. It was a crisp, early spring morning when I received an urgent message from Luna, the werewolf client I had helped find a secluded property years earlier. "Sullivan, we have a situation." Her voice was tense and worried over the phone. "Something ancient has awakened on my property. I need your help." Understanding the gravity of her call, I quickly made arrangements to visit her estate. Luna's property was a sprawling woodland haven, perfect for her needs, but it was also situated near an old burial mound that I had always suspected might be more than just a historical site. As I drove up the long, winding path to her home, Luna greeted me with a grim expression. "It started a few days ago," she explained as we walked towards the mound. "Strange noises at night, shadows moving in the woods, and a feeling of dread among the pack. We think something has been disturbed." Approaching the mound, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the spring air. The ground around the mound was visibly disturbed, the earth upturned as if something had clawed its way out. "We need to find out what's been awakened and how to deal with it," I said, pulling out my phone to contact Cassandra, the witch with knowledge of ancient magic. Cassandra arrived later that day, her presence immediately calming. After examining the site, she confirmed our fears. This is a burial site for a druid chieftain known for his powerful magic. It seems his rest has been disturbed, likely by those new constructions nearby. She nodded towards a new development on the adjacent property. "We need to appease the spirit," Cassandra advised, "or else the disturbance could escalate into something none of us can control." With this knowledge, Luna, Cassandra, and I prepared for a ritual to appease the ancient spirit. As night fell, we formed a circle around the mound, Cassandra leading us in chants while Luna and her pack stood guard. Midway through the ritual, the air grew thick, and a figure emerged from the mound. It was the spectral form of the druid chieftain, his majestic and terrifying appearance. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" His voice boomed through the forest. With Cassandra's guidance, I stepped forward, explaining our intentions and expressing our respect for his rest. "We seek to restore your peace, great chieftain. Please tell us how we may correct this." The spirit regarded me with piercing eyes before slowly nodding. "Restore the balance disturbed by your kind. Protect these lands from further harm." Agreeing to his terms, we negotiated the cessation of the nearby construction and established a protected zone around the mound, ensuring no future disturbances. With the spirit appeased, he returned to rest, and the land settled. Luna and her pack felt the immediate lifting of dread, and the woodland began to thrive again. As I drove back from Luna's estate, I reflected on how my role had evolved. I was no longer just a realtor, but a guardian, a bridge between the human and the supernatural worlds, ensuring peace and respect on both sides. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more enchanting tales from Sullivan's supernatural real estate adventures. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about Sullivan's unique clients and mystical dealings, comment below and let us know. Your feedback helps us bring you more of the stories you love.